If possible, I should be doing even 10 videos a day. All right, guys, welcome to our lesson. So this moment we're taking to give you 3 essays from Fathers of Nations, guys. So of course, Form 4s have limited time, and time is flying. So I'm here to give at least 3 essays if possible. If time will not allow, we'll do 2. So I promise 3, but we may do only 2. So I'll be reading the question, then we go through the analysis together with you. So guys, our first question is on corruption and greed. So listen to this question. Corruption and greed is the cancer that eats into African development. Do you agree? Show how true this is using the novel Fathers of Nations, right? Okay. So as I told you earlier, when you meet such a question, can you establish the keywords? And now the keywords in this question are corruption, greed, cancer, and then of course development is something there. Now again, remember this question is not limited to the text alone. It demands that you go beyond the text and talk about Africa. You may not go into depth about Africa, but you need to mention something to do with Africa. So in our introduction, let's focus on the keywords and interpret what we are going to do. So my introduction is as follows. Paul Vita in Fathers of Nation proves to us how dangerous bribery, manipulation, nepotism, favoritism, and endless desire for more funds or wealth suffocate the progress in Africa. You can add something like this is evident in countries such as Kenya, Uganda, Libya, Zimbabwe, and so many others, right? Okay. So let's come to our paragraphs. As you always know, the topic paragraphs, the paragraph, body paragraphs are supposed to be 4. So our first one is as follows, and every time I remind you about essays, I tell you the body paragraph must have a topic sentence, background information, plus an explanatory statement, right? Now, the background information is more than anything else because it has to explain what, when, where, who, how, the WH questions, okay? So, our first paragraph. The ministers are greedy and corrupt, that they only care about their interests in Fathers of Nation, hence they become a great challenge. So that is the topic sentence, generally showing that we are focusing on ministers and greed and how they affect the growth of Africa. Now the second statement, now I'll bring in matters of Africa because the question is not just limited to the text but bringing in the concept of Africa. And my sentence goes as follows. In most countries, including Uganda, Zimbabwe, you can even include Kenya, Libya, parliaments serve for self-gratification goals. Gabriela Wanyagi, welcome. Thank you for coming on board. If you are a student or a teacher maybe, or someone interested in literature, you can actually stay around and listen to our discussion. You can also raise questions on the chat. Like the video also, because today we are focusing on 20 likes for the video. So I started a bit late because again, every time 1 minute pushes ahead, I delayed in another video on Life Saga TV. So it pushed me ahead again in this one. And I was also making a call somewhere just to make clarification on some stuff, right? So the ministers are greedy, that they only care about their interests, and that becomes a great challenge in Africa. Now, to bring in Africa, I said in most countries, including Uganda, Zimbabwe, Libya, Kenya, parliaments have self-gratification goals for ministers and the leaders while suffocating citizens, right? Now, we want to get where, how, who, and all those questions. So Gabriela Wanyagi, like the video. Okay, so in Fathers of Nation, Melusi shares that the opposition leaders had ruined their country by fighting each other instead of uniting. The greed to become leaders enforced or supported them or encouraged them to fight each other instead of fighting for a common cause. And that ended up forcing Melusi out of political power. Greed made them long to be the next president, and even as Melusi tried to make them understand the need to unite and fight together, they never listened. Instead, they booed him, and that is how he had the big-time loss. Now, you can check that on page 93 of Fathers of Nations by Paul Vita. Currently, the country is poor, that is Zimbabwe, according to the text, and a lot of people have been rendered homeless and treated based on their tribe. Professor Kimani further indicates in Fathers of Nations that after teaching for a while at the university, members of parliament still earned less than the professor. Every MP started ranking in 100 times more than the professor in incomes just some few months later. This was not just an ordinary move. It was out of the greed the MPs had to ensure that they become affluent at the expense of citizens. Even though the professors' salaries are taxed, that of the MP are not. And so, they had campaigned strongly in Parliament to exempt themselves from the tax. Of course, if you check page 23, you'll see that. Currently, many MPs, including Walomu, now swim in money when he was just a rowdy fella from a minor tribe without roads or schools. Times when he was Kimani's colleague in the university, right? You can check that on page 29 for evidence. The conclusive sentence in a paragraph that I'm telling you is something that summarizes that specific paragraph. Indeed, the greed shown by leaders leave citizens to suffer economically. Let's go to paragraph 2. I hope you followed keenly in our first paragraph. The second body paragraph, corruption dominates in the governments of Africa, and that hinders development. Now let's go into details about general Africa. Sentence 2. Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Nigeria are among the top-ranking most corrupt nations in Africa that any development is faced with fraud, nepotism, misuse of funds, and other related issues. In Fathers of Nation, Tad Longway shares that after independence, corruption was born as the fourth problem of countries, adding to illiteracy among other problems. Leaders propelled the vice, and even though they keep telling the police to stop taking bribes, it cannot work. Ms. Mackenzie, too, realizes that the police cause unnecessary checks on the roads, especially during the times like the summit moment, so that they can collect bribes. Therefore, they keep traffic, harass passengers, and take every coin they want from them. Corruption renders citizens jobless and underemployed, as leaders do not care about the youth at all. Anyone who comes from the poor background has slim chances of getting employment or placed anywhere. All right? The specific example covers the taxi driver whom Mackenzie used to go back to the office from the interview. He has a university degree but lacks a formal engagement. The conclusive sentence for that paragraph, as such, corruption consistently leaves citizens poor all the time. Paragraph 3. Corruption leaves citizens dysfunctional in Africa. Kenya has been ranked among top corrupt nations where Anglo-leasing, e-citizen money laws, gold back, and other scandals have emerged. In Fathers of Nations, Banjul has no adequate water for the citizens, and it is only during the summit that water is available for the grass and fountains, to create a mesmerizing moment for the visitors. Melusi loses his business and his country ends up in inflation because of corruption in Zimbabwe. His president is interested in defending his own finances and financial opportunities rather than those of all citizens. The summit experiences a dysfunctional air conditioning system, a suggestion that people are less concerned about the public welfare. As the host head, everything should be in order during the summit. However, Gambia seems to have fallen in its heights of standards. Indeed, when corruption is in Africa, citizens cannot blame any other enemy apart from their leaders. The last paragraph of that essay, greed inspires many African leaders to believe presidency is their birthright. They cling to power even when they are not productive. Hence, consistently conduct corrupt acts. African nations such as Uganda, Cameroon, Togo are known for dynasties of presidents who sit squarely on the presidential seat and are unwilling to budge. The Libyan president rules for over 20 years and still wants to rule. He is known for rigging his way to office. President Didier Bangora has ruled his country for many years since colonial times, and he does not seem to leave the seat soon. Other heads of state too have ruled for many decades, and they do not have a solution to the challenges facing their countries. Instead, they only exploit Africa, as presented in Way Omega through AU's control. The strategy in Way Omega lacks direction and cannot solve the African problems as they are currently. President Bangora testifies not to have read any of the documents, and so they want to buy what they do not know. Clearly, Africa suffers its fate because of corruption, which emanates from greed of the leaders. Now, our conclusive paragraph for the entire essay should go as following. Overall, Africa, as shown through the summit and different presidents in the summit, is dominated by greed and corruption that suffocate its development. The problems that Africans encounter in their nations are products of nepotism, fraud, fund whistling, and theft of public funds, and should be dealt with squarely if any progress has to be observed, right? So I'll show the essay before we go to the next one. At least 13 minutes, we're already done with one essay, which means we can cover 3, actually. Now let me show this question here. And I also show the part of the passage. Introduction there. Paragraph 1 there. Paragraph 2. Paragraph 3. Then paragraph 4. And conclusion. All right. Now let's get to the second question. Let's get to the second question now. The second question is on neocolonialism. It's a common question I've seen in different papers and in different versions. So the question goes as, neocolonialism seems to be here to stay, and it affects African nations. Do you agree? Show your arguments in an essay by closely referring to Fathers of Nation by Paul Vita. So let's begin again with the introduction. The introduction goes as following. Hey, I've been talking and the knee is mute. Hey. Yeah, hiyo ya pili yote. Oh, guys, I was talking all this time, but the camera was mute. But then we'll just have to go back to the other essay and repeat it. No one showed me here on the chat that my mic was muted. You know, I mute it when I was doing something else. But let's just redo the other essay before we go to the third. I hope we'll finish within time. The second essay, I'll repeat it because the mic was mute at some point. So the essay was, neocolonialism seems to be here to stay and it affects African nations. Do you agree? Show your arguments in the essay by closely referring to Fathers of Nations by Paul Vita. Now this one I'll read as now I show because I don't want to go back to it later. It is clear that even though African nations are independent, most of their decisions are held by former colonial masters. Paragraph 1. The change initiated for African leaders in the summit is pushed by international bodies, which are not part of Africa. The presidents have to go for the change or miss out of possible aids they get from such countries. Way Omega is a strategy that was generated by 20 of the world's best, brightest Nobel Prize winners who saw the best to develop Africa. The heads of the 50 countries do not even approve of change, and during the summit they quarrel over aspects of change or change of terms for themselves. We also see the leaders murmuring amongst themselves as Bangora struggles to explain to them the strategies. Jemba Jemba as a king has less worry about it because he knows his leadership is a birthright, whereas the rest of the heads, including Bangora, have become tyrannies who do not even want to get out of power, however old they are. This is a typical colonialism that oppressed Africans and deprived them the right to vote, even have diverse people in power. Even though African nations believe they are independent, most of their policies are found in colonial principles. Paragraph 2. Even though Africans choose to govern themselves and elect leaders who can represent them, such leaders only leave them in trouble, taking them back to colonial times. Typically, the leaders adopt colonial ways of governing the citizens and take pride in such colonial ways of representation. The current leaders are mere black Europeans in quotes who oppress their fellow citizens and seem to colonize them once more. They are tyrannies who rule in a dictatorial manner, right? I think you saw the president of Zimbabwe who decided to humiliate and worsen the lives of his people, the lives of the people of Zimbabwe. Now, the only thing that they would hang on, which is life, love, and freedom, is suppressed. In Nigeria, we also see that the president hates critique. Chamaka tries to critique him over fires in a specific zone in Nigeria, and he ends up in jail. He also has his Change Inside Africa banned, so he gets to lose meaning in life. Consequently, citizens in different nations feel oppressed just like colonial times and would wish to live in other countries. In Kenya, the members of parliament afford to hold coups through amending laws so that they continue amassing wealth while citizens suffer. This is the highest level of neocolonialism, where wealth used to be with few people, whereas the rest of the citizens suffer. MP Walomu, for example, affords to scare off the pursuers in the by-election with an intention of taking over power from the fallen man, pesa kubwa kazi ndogo. Once in power, he amasses wealth for himself. We are told, for example, he has a fleet of cars in a very short period. The rest of the citizens suffer greatly and cannot access enough money to satisfy their needs. Security has turned into a personal or private enterprise. Kimani says even lecturers have their least salary, and it is clear that he hardly can afford a suitable life for his family. Ideally, leadership is a matter of life and death, and people go for it because they know they will gain prominence, vehicles, and they can also abuse the law as they want. The last paragraph, body paragraph, Tahir believes his president is now a puppet of the America, a clear indication of neocolonialism. He once used to scare off the Americans because he started even the Feast of Allah, a group that was allowing them to make their weapons. However, after the bombing by Al-Qaeda, he closed down the Feast of Allah, rendering the citizens jobless. A farm that used to produce weapons and scare America. He also had to compensate those who suffered impact of bombing after America demanded he had to do so. When the Gambian president is creating rapport with the heads, he chooses to use the poles of influence aspect, which is an American tactic. Kenya is respected also because it has great relationship with America. It clearly shows that neocolonialism is a dominant thought that rules over Africa. In a nutshell, even though Africa got independence and African people began to rule themselves, these nations are still under the bounds of colonialism under these black heads. The independence of Africa is curtailed by lacking confidence in running the nations, institutions, and fostering policies that are typically African. Now let's go to the third question. We are at minute 32. Third question. Women are empowered in the modern African context. Show how true this is in line with Fathers of Nations by Paul Vita. Now I turn the camera because this is our last question and I don't have to even hurry. So let's start with the introduction. In Fathers of Nations, women such as Fiona, Tuni, Pamela, Asia are some of the women with their focus, outlooks, and determination towards their cause. You know? Let's start with Tuni. Tuni is an empowered woman at her tender age due to skills and knowledge she accrued for her future. She is aware that security is a private matter, hence begins to prepare herself to counter the challenges of this time. Having attended a seminar, she informs her parents that women need to be strong and in control all the time to attain in life. She says two-thirds of women experience violence in the hands of men because they are easy prey. Lack of awareness of the immediate environment and appearance of weakness makes them viable to attacks. She warns her mother against parking a vehicle, waiting time between going back to the car after shopping and driving off. She indicates that this is one of the ways women are easily preyed. Indeed, Tuni is an empowered woman ready to counter or withstand the harsh, insecure world in modern Africa. Let's go to the second character, that is Pamela. Pamela is an educated woman who is empowered to face the challenges of an interracial marriage deep in Africa, Nigeria. Even though her education is not highlighted in the novel, it is revealed that Abiola met her during the Harvard days, suggesting she was in the university. Pamela rejects having children to proceed, and when Abiola fails to consider this, she decides that they stay without any child. On their arrival from Boston, Pamela realizes that there is a woman in their house. While interrogating on the matters, she feels that The family of Abiola wants him to marry another woman because she does not have children. After some arguments and requesting Abiola to let them go, she realizes he's not willing and decides to walk into the dark, leaving for Boston and filing for divorce weeks later. She realizes that she cannot fit in the conservatist African society of Abiola. Generally, we interpret that the whole situation as having happened of an empowered woman. It enabled her to counter it in a firm, resolute way. Paragraph 3. Fiona is an empowered woman who works as a journalist in a patriarchal Gambian society, met with a lot of challenges. When we meet her in the novel, she is set to interview Abiola concerning the forthcoming summit of the 50 heads of African nations. Fiona is so confident even as she pursues and later asks Abiola questions. She is well informed about who Abiola is, his books, possible demands of the summit, and as Abiola calls her a low-rated reporter and humiliates her, Fiona focuses on her task of acquiring information. She even goes to Seamount Hotel at night and finds his room and tricks Tad Longway into establishing where he stays. She later learns that Abiola is the guide and making a turning point in the summit. She is almost abducted by Mola, but fights and even calls Abiola to rescue her. Her bag is full of tools she uses to help Abiola and later regain his trust. Indeed, Fiona's empowerment is a strong weapon that helps her overcome challenges within her world. The last paragraph, body paragraph. Asia is an empowered woman in matters life and takes a realistic approach towards economic situations. She understands that when the government fails to provide people with security, it is the role of the people to offer themselves private arrangements. Moreover, she is able to go to campus, and that is where she meets Kimani, who weds her. She knows that if teaching is not providing the needs the family has, other greener pastures can do. Hence, encourages Kimani to do so. She observes the challenges they are facing as a family, and when Kimani cannot relent, she opts to marry Walomu. The conclusive paragraph. In conclusion, in Fathers of Nations, the author has given women a more focused outlook in their choices and decisions because they are set to outdo their challenges. Guys, we've gone through 3 excerpts, the 3 essays. Can we do a 4th one maybe? Just to make sure that we've covered enough? I think so. So let's do the 4th one. And the 4th essay, before I do it, let me show you the notes for this other essay we've just finished. And these are the notes. I hope you can see that. Women empowerment. All right. So let's move with it. You see the introduction right there. Body paragraph 1. Body paragraph 1 still. Then paragraph 2. Paragraph 3. Paragraph 3. Then paragraph 4 is coming on us here. A conclusion right there. Okay, so let's go to the next question. Of course, I've shown you the question. Determination and focus is critical in the success of any human being. Show the truth in this statement by referring to Fathers of Nations by Paul Vita. So, of course, we'll go through the answer with you because that is our last question for today. The willpower and proclamation for victory starts with us, and it can be easily attained if we choose to have it, as it happens with the 4 travelers, Tad, Fiona in Fathers of Nations. The first paragraph. It is determination that has path alpha win. It is determination to have path alpha win that actually gives Tad Longway and Abiola a reason to smile at the end of the summit. Once he has the team, he tactfully works with the guide, that is Tad Longway. Once Tad has the team, he tactfully works with the guide and other 4 in ensuring they fully understand both Way Omega and Path Alpha, as well as attend to the summit whenever necessary. He later calls them for a meeting to lay a stronger foundation for success. During this meeting, he reminds the 4 the reasons why they should actually ensure Path Alpha wins. He lets Abiola talk to them about the mission of the next day, and this is how Nick comes up with the trick to give them victory. With determination, Tad maneuvers his way through the summit and witnesses victory. Paragraph 2. The determination and focus Tad has enables him to have a whole team that can work for Agda. When we meet Tad in the novel, he is meeting the prospective individuals to help them push Path Alpha to the presidency. He convinces Kimani with such a determination that overwhelms all boundaries. Kimani was unwilling to even listen to him and let set foot in his house. However, Tad insisted, and when they talked for a while, he convinced him to believe that he was an activist within the teaching corridors and could successfully coach people towards a better future. In the end, Kimani joins Agda. Similarly, Tad talks to Tahir, Melusi, Abiola, and Chamaka with such determination that they all accept to work alongside him. Finally, this is a success found in the fortitude bestowed in him. Determination and focus give Fiona a chance to work successfully with VOA and score her in her mission. On the basis of her background and devotion, Fiona is loaned by VOA from Gambian News after few hours of working on the story surrounding African Summit. She is so focused that as she begins interviewing Abiola, her interest to learn about Summit itself, expectations and possible flaws stands out. Even Abiola appreciates that she is not a lamb, he thought, but a lioness. Robert Manley informs her that she is required by the VOA, and once she has been informed of the expectations, she is quickly put to task. Fiona focuses and uses the information Nick gives her from the silent listener to explore more from Abiola and Tad. She tricks Abiola into unmasking his hidden identity, and their mission then collaborates with the Agda team to carry the day in the summit. If not for determination, Fiona could not have managed to be such a success in the summit. Abiola is one determined character in Fathers of Nations that in all his missions, he puts up a tough skin to victory. He studies in the USA and comes back to teach in the University of Harvard. In the University of... Which university was Abiola teaching?
Harvard.
No.
Really?
A university in Nigeria. What name was it?
Ibadan.
Ibadan. He comes back to teach in the university. We also see him engaged. Scroll with me. Okay. We also see him engaged in presentations such as what he goes to do in Boston. Hi, scroll with me. Welcome. Like the video. We also see him engaged in presentations. Let me finish here first. Besides, he is engaged to advise presidents of Way Omega, and because of his focus, he understands the document fully, that he even challenges Fiona about it. He further becomes open to Path Alpha and manages to walk through the 4 travelers and offer them victory on the strategy in the summit. As such, if not for Abiola's courage, we could not witness the victory by the 4. So we have the conclusive paragraph. In conclusion, through determination and focus, everything is possible. Our dreams come to reality when we believe that we will carry the day. Actualizing such dreams requires determination, just as Tad, Fiona, and the 4 travelers do, without being shaky in the entire text. So guys, we've gone through the 4 essays today. 4 good essays. That means a world to you. If you use those 4 essays and look through the detailed examples I've shown, and I've been showing even on the screen, that will help you a milestone. So consider revising with us. Keep watching us, and if you have any questions that you may not be able to interpret, you can also post them on my comment section, and I also go through, then help you reason out on answers. So feel free to come here anytime and maybe share the questions, because currently I know that candidates in Kenya have an access to so many questions. In fact, I have about 80 different papers that I should be checking later, but currently I'm not able to actually show anything maybe specific in relation to them. Once I download them, I'll be able to show you the questions and we'll go through together. So thank you so much for paying attention, and I consider you as a very good audience. Even if you come for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, but I would consider if you actually sit here for a whole hour, it will be better, because you will gain first-hand information. You will also have clarification of what I'm saying, and in case you have to raise a question, you will do so. Unfortunately, some people maybe don't have that schedule, because I'm varying from time to time. Sometimes I start at 2, sometimes I start late. So maybe that one is actually affecting my audience, but I really appreciate your presence here. And for the few minutes we've been together, I appreciate. Scroll with me is here asking a lot of questions, but unfortunately I don't answer those questions on this platform, because this platform focuses on discussions to do with specific topics. It's not like a site for, social connections. We can only connect by just greeting, hi, and maybe how are you, which country are you from. But such questions as what you are posing is very challenging for me. All right. So I appreciate and I hope that my discussions here should be productive towards your performance in exams, because my happiness is when I see you having scored very well in literature, and I'll be so proud. Okay, adios. Thank you. Let's meet in another discussion like this tomorrow. So, of course, I'll be pinning my contact somewhere on my channel, so that in case somebody wants side discussions, it can be possible. So, of course, I've seen some people interested in other discussions, or also suggesting packages, because I have membership packages where I'm thinking of what topics to discuss there, so that they fit in the demands of different people, and that would be okay. So let me try and do that. So see you. Adios.